If you see this word in your construction contract, you're about to get screwed. Now I know old school builders will call me an idiot, I'll get obliterated online for this, but hear me out to the end and I know I can convince you to come to my side of the fence. My name's Aaron from Albatross Academy and I help homeowners build homes without getting screwed in the process. I hate blanket contingencies. And you might be thinking to yourself, contingencies, what's the big deal? Who cares? Or what is a contingency anyways? AI defines contingencies as a reserve amount of money set aside for unforeseen circumstances. Essentially a financial cushion for dealing with things that are improbable or extremely unlikely to occur. We've basically been building the same way for 70 years. The building process is relatively and pretty much predictable. It's people. People are the wild card. People are the lurking variable. People are the reason that contingencies are needed to help projects stay on budget. The key phrase I have an issue with is unforeseen circumstances. I've seen builders dump 10 to 15% of total project costs into a contingency fund because you just never know. Well, guess what? You do know. We have drawings and we have specifications that tell us exactly what's about to be built. So we do know. Unforeseen circumstances are the kids seeing dead people in Sixth Sense, or spoiler alert, or Chris Rock getting slapped at the Oscars by Will Smith. Those are unforeseen circumstances. But mostly I see contingencies occurring and being necessary likely due to two things, either laziness or greed. First, the laziness bit. Now, any construction worker listening to this, their hair's gonna stand up on end a little bit. Talk about my mom, talk about my family all you want, but don't call me lazy. And what I mean here is that all aspects of the building, or in new construction at least anyways, are laid out in construction drawings, in specifications and drawings. And if the drawings aren't clear, don't start till they are. So once the drawings are received and you can start your estimate, what I use is something called the SMEL test, S-M-E-L, subcontract, materials, equipment, and labor. And what it does is, it's a framework that we run all of our cost codes through that help us to determine if there are any extra costs or costs that we haven't thought about in a particular cost code. And what that does is it allows us to get the most amount of cost certainty for every single line item in our estimate, which means a much more accurate estimate. Where the laziness occurs is that builders might get a quote for drywalling and enter that into their estimate, and they don't think about the scaffolding that's maybe required for the drywallers to get up to certain heights if they're not supplying that on their own. So the builder dumps a certain cost into the estimate and never thinks about further cost implications. Then the drywallers show up on site, they go, hey, where's the scaffolding? We're not supplying it. And the builder goes, oh shoot. And the builder runs out to the store and grabs some scaffolding, rents some scaffolding, and brings it back to the drywallers. And where does that cost go? It doesn't go in the drywallers cost code. No, the contingency, we can put it in the contingency. That's why we have it. Now, I understand that scaffolding is going to be necessary and cost the client, no matter if it's in the contingency or if it's in the cost code. But the problem with the big blanket contingency and why it screws people is that it's often used to dump extraneous and erroneous costs that the client may never see, and it appears to be that the project is still on budget. Framing labor for the foundation maybe took 30% longer than we thought it was gonna. Dump it in the contingency. Someone forgot to add crane time into our budget. Dump it into the contingency. Then at the end of the project, we go, hey, we are on budget. We used $80,000 of our contingency, but you know what? We didn't spend it all. Now, what the contingency actually is a bit of a trick. It's essentially managing and inflating clients' expectations so that when the project comes in under budget, everybody's happy. This seems like a victimless crime, except it's not. The second little bit is oftentimes construction companies' management fees are based on the overall construction cost of the build, and that includes the contingency. If we attack on a 10 to 15% contingency and then charge them a management fee onto that contingency, well, now we're making money on money that will likely never be spent. And that's the problem I have. I don't have a problem insulating certain costs when there's more cost uncertainty in, say, something like excavation. But the reality is that there are so few cost codes in a new build that we have large degrees of uncertainty in that we really don't need to do that often. We can insulate certain costs if things are absolutely unknown, but a real estimator is trying to get to as much cost certainty prior to the build as is possible. And by dumping on a blanket contingency, we're really not getting there. And we're really just saying, if I'm wrong, we'll just dump it in the contingency. Some people out there might say, but Aaron, what about these unforeseen weather events? Those are unforeseen. To which I say, yes, you are correct, but how likely are they? If you're building through the winter in a northern climate, could you carry some costs in a cold weather measures cost code? Could you add 30% onto your labor because your laborers might be working a lot slower during the winter times just due to cold and bulky clothing and slippery conditions? I'm not against having foresight and adding insulation to those little cost codes. That's being wise, but the reality is that a blanket contingency is often just used as an excuse for poor foresight. So make sure your builder is using the SMEL test, S-M-E-L test, and you shouldn't see contingencies. Contingencies shouldn't be required for a builder willing to actually do the work of estimating. Make sure you like and subscribe. It helps me out and ensures that you don't miss videos like this coming up.